Well, I'm on the farm today and been talking and showing some videos of the 886 International pulling this flex wing mower, and thought I'd get into what it is. I got it down here. I want to kind of clean it off a little bit. Been mowing on the hill with it a little bit, and of course all around this field I've cut it. I've cut it down so we can work it up here in a little bit. But in any event, I thought I'd talk about this mower and why I bought it. And I don't know how detailed I'll get into the specs, but basically I was in the hunt for a 15-foot bat wing, and I just thought, you know, a nice used 15-foot would go well with this tractor or my Massey 1105. And I actually was on the lookout for a couple of years, and I just, looking at these 15-footers, the ones I saw were either like new and had a like new price on them, or they were used and abused, and I mean they were they were in really rough shape. And so I wanted to get something that when we get the autumn olives down, we can maintain the pasture between this and some herbicide. We can just bring them into a grassy field, whether we ultimately cut them for hay or not. But we don't want our fields where we can safely get a tractor to grow up in autumn olives. And so we also don't want to spend hours and hours and hours mowing with in my case, a 5-foot bush hog. It just took forever even to mow this field around this barn. And so the other mower that I considered was like a rigid mower, 10-foot with 2 gearboxes on it. And I really like those. I especially like the one that John Deere had, and because it had an equal angle hitch on the MX-10 or MX-8. I think they're like RC-8 or RC-10 now, but I didn't really want like a crazy heavy drive shaft that I couldn't lift. And the way their medium duty cutter was made, it had a short equal angle hitch, not unlike my John Deere square baler. The problem with them, though, is that the blades are timed and there's no slip clutch on the gearboxes except on the main drive on those rigid cutters. And all of those are that way. And so, you hit a rock or a stump, and we've got some stumps up here, and if you hit it hard enough, you can damage your gearbox. If you get on the internet and some of these forums, there's somebody that's got a rigid 10-foot or 8-foot rigid mower with 2 gearboxes for the blades, and they've got a gearbox out. Well, this arrangement right here eliminates that, because each gearbox has got its own slip clutch. And then the other thing, once you got up to 10-foot, scalping, from what I read, was an issue. And there's nothing hardly flat around here. I mean, you're kind of looking at it, around here on this field and on the main part of the farm. But so 12-foot mowers, and I think Rhino makes a 10-foot, and I wanted something bigger than, if you're going to spend the money, I wanted something bigger than 10-foot, because they were more expensive than the 10-foot flex wing that Rhino's got. It's more expensive than the John Deere 10-foot rigid, as I recall. And so started looking at 12-foot flex wing mowers, and the prices were, some of the prices were really high. Some of the quality of construction wasn't that it was necessarily not good. It was more along the lines of we want to make the rotary cutter lightweight enough that somebody with a compact tractor can use it. And so steel thickness is compromised, and blade size. And I'll talk about some of that stuff here later. But so I decided on a new 12-foot rotary cutter, and this is a Bush-Wacker rotary cutter, Bush Hog. We call them Bush Hogs up here. It's kind of like a tissue's a Kleenex. But anyway, this was, in my view, and this is a model MD144. So this was the lowest price of the 12-foot Bush Hogs, and I don't really want to get into how much I paid for it, but this was it was I want to say by far the lowest price. But in my view, it was the heaviest duty of the rotary cutters, and the only equal to it was probably John Deere's 12-foot. It's probably to some extent more stout. I know the gearboxes are heavier, as I recall. But I brought a sheet with me so I could try to remember some of this stuff. I just right off the bat, I did not want the used airplane tires, the foam filled tires. We're never on the highway, and as you saw in a video on that 886, we just changed the front tires on it because of old age, but also they had some one of them had some stobs in it and was flat. But I don't ever have to worry about these things going flat. We've been running these laminated type wheels on this farm for as long as I can remember, and so I think that's pretty good testimony to their longevity. So this tractor right here is I think 83 horsepower on the PTO, and my Massey 1105 is dynoed at 117 or 118 on the PTO, and I was concerned about the gearboxes on some of these rotary cutters and whether or not they could take the power from the tractor and not twist up the drive lines. And so I considered a 1000 PTO rotary cutter, but I didn't want to change out the shaft on the Massey 1105. This one had it's got 540 and 1000 PTOs coming out of the back, but in the end I thought that with a 12-foot cutter, one of the benefits is it doesn't lock me into a big tractor like this. So I can probably run it on my John Deere 5055D. It's around 50 horsepower. The horsepower requirements for this is, like they say, from 35 to 75 and horsepower. So the gearboxes on this little cheat sheet I got here from Bush-Wacker, they compare Rhino, Bush Hog, Land Pride, and Woods 12-foot cutters, and these are just some of the highlights that I looked at when I was looking at buying one of these things. One of them, the main gearbox, the divider up here, rated at 160 horsepower, so that far exceeds both of my tractors. But all of those rotary cutters had 160 rated horsepower divider boxes. I think John Deere is much higher than that. Their gearboxes are higher rated, I think, than this one right here. However, these gearboxes on the wings, there and there and down there, they're on this cutter, they're rated at 120 horsepower. The Rhino TS12, those wing gearboxes are 65 horsepower. Same for the Bush Hog 1812. The Land Pride RC 2512 is 75 horsepower, and the Woods BW12 90 horsepower. So substantially heftier gearbox than some of the others, which I think is a good thing. One thing I like about the Bush-Wacker is the gearboxes are filled with double-aught oil. I don't know if it's called cornhead oil or what that is, but it's a thick oil, and sometimes these rotary cutters, the seals go out on the bottom and the oil just drains out, and then next thing you know, you're looking at another gearbox. But sometimes when the seals go out, people will, on not just these kind of gearboxes, but other gearboxes as well, people will fill them up with that cornhead grease, which I think is double-aught grease, and when they, so it kind of slows down the leak, if you will, and it's kind of a poor man's fix. The very fact that it had that stuff in it out of the gate, to me, was a plus. And like I said, all three of these wings have slip clutches on them. One thing about the 12-foot that I liked, and as I mentioned, there's nothing really flat up here except kind of what you're seeing. And I've talked about how the 10-foot rigid would scalp. So these are 4-foot wings to make up 12, and 4-foot, 4-foot, and 4-foot. So it actually makes a pretty nice cut as it goes over the terrain, and so that's kind of a good thing as far as the as far as how it looks when you're done with it. And I don't have a lot of hours on this thing, so I may change my mind. I'll do a long-term follow-up at some point. Supposedly the cutting capacity on this mower is 3 inches. Some of the other ones are 2 and 1.5. The drive shafts going to the wings are category 4. The one going from the divider box to the tractor PTO, depending on which literature you read from Bush-Wacker, and I'll just say this about Bush-Wacker, their literature is not great. Even the owner's manual I don't think is very good. They don't show the machine specifications in it. They don't even show how to set up the machine, at least not to my satisfaction. They've got a video that shows you how to do it. I mean, it's not rocket science, but I think they could have done better than that. But some of their literature says Cat 5, some of it says Cat 4, some of it says Cat 6 on the drive shaft going to the tractor. So in my view, the main thing is don't get this thing in the ground where you got to get in a situation where you're going to tear up that main drive shaft coming out. And like I said, this is an 83 horsepower tractor, so this is a pretty good match for this mower. The wings, Bush-Wacker used to have a ratchet that would come down, if you look at some old ones, to this wheel to level it up, and they've changed that to where this piece coming across here is attached down here and right there, and you crank this turnbuckle right here, and that makes that wheel go down or up, and that's how you level the deck from side to side. And I need to bring this one up just a tad, and then the It's got a little bit of suspension. This main hydraulic cylinder on the back has got a double set of springs on it, which I think is pretty good. That's one thing the John Deere didn't have, was any kind of suspension. On the drive shaft going to the tractor, it's a CV joint. It's not that heavy. I was able to lift it, you know, pretty easy. The one on my John Deere round baler, that's a tough attachment to hook up. And what I read about the 1000 PTO machines is the constant velocity joints on the end of those are just, you know, for an old guy like me, or an older guy like me, it gets harder. It's pretty hard to handle. So this one's not too bad. So let's see here, what else? And you can look at some of this stuff online. I won't bore you with everything. The deck is 10 gauge steel. The blade holders on these, it looks to me like a piece of channel. It's a heavy piece of channel that, there's, I think they call it a 1x4 gusseted bar. I don't know. I'll start the tractor here in a little bit and maybe give you a little better look at it. I'll fold these wings up here in just a minute. And the gearbox warranty, 5 years. This thing cuts from somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think somewhere around it says 1.5 to 13. They all cut about like that. And I've got it set up pretty high with these hydraulic stops on that cylinder. I don't have it all the way up, but you know, when we mow these autumn olives, we leave the stubble fairly tall, so hopefully we're running over them and mashing them down instead of having them go into the tire. So right now I've got this thing set up fairly high. This is what you see here is how I'd be mowing with it. And then the deck is made, I think they're all made like this now, so the water can shed off of them if you leave them in the rain. And one thing, this one has a round stump jumper on it, and some of them do not have that. They have like kind of a bar like that, and it's got some of them have some funky shape to it. I think the Rhinos like that, but I prefer a round stump jumper. It just seems to me like it's better that something round goes up against the stump instead of a rectangular bar of some sort that runs into it and hits it. And so I think that's a better deal. This mower came standard with deck rings. One thing about this one compared to the John Deere, the deck ring is a full circle on all 3 sections of the mower. So some of I'm pretty sure the John Deere 12-foot, the deck ring doesn't go all the way around because of the way the blade intersects with the center section. But I liked it that the deck ring went all the way around, and it wasn't an option. Some of these others, they do not have deck rings. And I don't think that's a good thing, but it also takes weight out of it if you're trying to get these things to fit on a compact tractor. So the blades, there's an 8-inch overlap. One area that this mower is heavier duty, if you will, and maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't, but these side bands going around on the Bush-Wacker are 3/8 steel, and on some of the others they're anywhere from 1/4 to 3/16. The gearboxes on these, I think it's like a half inch plate right here that's welded to the deck, and then the gearbox is bolted to it. I mean, everything on here is heavy duty, and if you go back and look at some of these forums, you know, like 20 years ago, some of the guys kind of poo-pooed the Bush-Wacker brand, and some of them liked them and some of them just couldn't stand them. And I know one comment I read was they have a lot of steel in a lot of the wrong places, but I'm not sure how heavy side bands and a place to anchor your gearbox is something bad. And the chains that go all the way around it that are cluttered with all this automotive right now, that's standard. Some of them offer chains. I can't recall which ones are standard or not, but a lot of them, the competitors don't have the chains, and it's an option. On this one, it's standard, just like the deck rings. So let me clear this thing off, and I'll fire up the International here, and I'll just crank it up while it's sitting like this, and then I'll fold it up. One thing, folding it up, I've already found out the hard way, is there's a couple things here I'll talk about. The first time I folded this thing, you see that clevis right there, and it goes over top of that. Well, there's a pin that goes through there that holds the wings in their upright position. And the first time I lifted this thing, this hose was right in between there, and I caught it just in time, but I skinned my hose a little bit, and I've put some tape on it just to kind of keep the weather off the steel braiding, but I didn't cut it. And then that fitting right there was leaking a little bit of fluid. I think we got that taken care of. You really need to go over these things with a wrench to make sure everything's tight. So in the opening shot of this Bush Hog, and again before I fold it up, this thing was sitting on its side. So that one of my fears of buying a flex wing mower, whether it was 15 foot or 12 foot, was the potential for the thing to flip over. And so this is not like a really wide track right here. I mean, if you look at those wheels compared to the back wheels on that tractor, they're really set in, and this angle doesn't do it justice. And I was up there on the hill, and I'd been mowing, and I was getting ready to come down, and I had a little bit of angle, and I started to fold the wings up. If I was going in this direction, I started to fold the wings up. Well, these wings, there's one remote, and what it does, it lifts the mower like that, and then it starts folding the wings. I apologize for the wind noise. But they don't fold at the same time. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Well, when I was up there on the hill, I was on just a touch of a slope, and this one started, I think they both started to come up a little bit, and then this one decided it was going to come up before that one, and I was on a slope, and when this one came and hit over center, there was enough wing still down on this side that put all the weight on these two wheels. And when this one came over center, and I'm already on a bit of a slope, when it landed home, it rocked the Bush Hog like that, and it was like slow motion. I could see it coming. It was one of those things where you can't make it not tip over. And it just slowly went over on its side, and I stopped, and we had my brother, he had his tractor up there, and we had a tow strap, and we just hooked to it and pulled it back over. So one of my lesson learned from that, that's the kind of stuff that sears in your brain forever. It wasn't scary. I just kind of saw it happening, and really no damage. There was no damage done. It just kind of laid over on its side, and then we just pulled it back over, and I let the wing down as it pulled over, and all was good. Well, what what I learned is I can run this thing with, I can transport this thing on the farm with the wings down. They don't have to be up, except when I go through the gates. Our gates are a little over 10 feet, so in order to get through the gates, I just have to lift them up, and that's not a problem. The two gates in particular that I would be going through with this cutter. So just like a 10-foot rigid would always be 10 foot going through the gates or wherever, and would never tip over. On this one, I just need to fold it up, get through the gates, let it back down. The road going up the hill is, it's like 16 feet wide. And so I learned that I can just run this thing and transport it around the farm with the wings down. And that's a good thing. No harm, no foul there. So let me clean some of this debris off here. All right, I blowed this thing off, and still got a few little sticks out there. These autumn olives, to get them out of the chains, I'm going to have to send it back to the factory probably. Those are the most hateful plant I think I've ever encountered on this farm, but I'll deal with those things another day. One thing I wanted to mention in regards to, being heavy duty and steel in the wrong place. This mower weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,350 pounds. By contrast, the Rhino, according to the literature I'm looking at, the Rhino TS12 is 2,750. The Land Pride RC 2512 is 2,540 pounds, and the Woods BW12 is, if I can find my place here, 2,450 pounds. The Bush Hog 1812 is 3,278, so it's pretty close to this Bush-Wacker. The tongue weight, and again, this gets back to can you run it on a compact tractor? And so the tongue weight on this Bush-Wacker is right at 1,000 pounds, 1,005 pounds. The Bush Hog 1812 is 1,086, so it's a little heavier on the tongue. The Rhino TS12 is 748. The Land Pride RC 2512 793, and the Woods BW12 is 750 pounds. And that difference in the weight is directly proportional to the amount of steel and the thickness used on this Bush Hog. So let me crank this thing up, and I'll lift it up and fold it, and we're on level ground here. I don't think it'll flip over on me, but who knows. So I just kind of walk around, and you can sort of see the underside of the machine. And here's the deck rings I talked about. They go all the way around 360 degrees, even on the bottom. And when I had it flipped over on its side, I took a look-see at the bottom, and so far I don't think I've done anything to it negatively. I've hit a few rocks and cut down a few autumn olives that were probably 1.5 inches thick. Nothing really major. I have no desire to run this thing over crazy, heavy duty, highway and power line duty where, you know, you're cutting stuff that big. What I'd really like to do is to get the place whipped into shape where all we're doing is just basically cutting grass and a stray twig of autumn olive like that. But this is the underside of it, and if I can slip around here, you can kind of see the pan is there's a I think it's a 1-inch bar, and then this channel, it's kind of a U-shaped channel, and that's what these blades are bolted to. So with my cheat sheet out again, one thing I wanted to talk about was the blades. And so the Bush-Wacker blades are a 1/2 inch thick and 4 inches wide. And they call them updraft blades. I don't know what that means, but on some of the other cutters, like the Rhino TS12, they're 3 inches wide. So, you know, they're like probably that much thinner. And the Bush Hog, they're a 1/2 inch thick, 3 inch. That's the 1812. The Land Pride RC 2512, 1/2 inch thick, 3 inch with lift. And then the Woods BW12 they're 4 inch, 1/2 inch thick. So this is more like a blade I think you'd see on a 15-foot batwing than something that's 3 inches wide. And so again, steel that in this cutter that might not be in another cutter, and that's why, you know, that's why it weighs what it weighs. Now the inside is a single wall. It is dome shaped, so the water will run off of it. The pins that the mower folds up on are 1 inch thick. I think on one of these others they show that pin at like 7/8 of an inch. On the hinge rods and the leveling rods are 1 inch thick on this mower. On the Land Pride RC 2512, they're 7/8 of an inch. Does that make a big deal? I don't know. It can't hurt, I don't think. So I meant to turn it on while it was setting up. Let me let it back down, and I'll bring it on, and then maybe we'll kind of wrap this video up. I'll just say real quick before I let it back down, when it comes to storing this thing, the overall width is you know, it's pretty nice. It's as narrow as it is to squeeze in between other equipment versus, let's say, a 15-foot batwing or a rigid 10-foot. That's kind of what it sounds like running. Actually, it's what it sounds like running. So let me cut this off and I'll come back. That's the mower. You know, I'm pleased with what I got at the moment. Time will tell, you know, how much I like it or I don't like it. I can tell you this, it's compared to a 5-foot Bush Hog, it's fast. And you know, when you think about it, with a 5-foot Bush Hog, you're probably overlapping a foot every pass. And you know, with this one at 12 feet, if I overlapped a foot, I would be easily double what the 5-foot cuts in one pass. So, you know, whatever it takes me, took me maybe 4 hours to mow, we're looking at 2 hours here, all things being equal. So, is this the best Bush Hog flex wing rotary cutter? Is it better than the Bush Hog or the Rhino and all these other ones I've been talking about? You know, time will tell. Is there anything wrong with the Bush Hog, the Rhino, the Woods, and the Land Pride? I'd say there's nothing wrong with them. I just chose, for the amount of money I was spending, to get the most heavy-duty Bush Hog I could get for the money. And I think, you know, if you don't abuse it, this thing ought to last as long as I'm able to get around on this farm, and then my kids, it ought to serve them well too. So anyway, that's the video, the Bush-Wacker 144, MD144. Tough on grass, easy on your wallet. Now, even though it was the lowest priced rotary cutter, I didn't feel like it was particularly easy on my wallet, but I got what I got. I don't foresee myself crawling around underneath it and fixing gearbox seals and replacing gearboxes. So in the end, I just felt like for this one, something new was probably proactively a good investment here on this farm. So got a lot going on. Haying is just around the corner. A lot of projects and on deck, and so stay tuned, subscribe, comment, like, share, and we'll talk to you later.